For more than 17 years, fans of The Sopranos have argued endlessly about one question. Did Tony Soprano die in the final scene? Some believe he was murdered the second the screen cut to black. Others argue he simply kept living his chaotic, stressful life. But what if the truth isn't in the final 10 seconds of the show, but in an earlier scene that almost everyone overlooked? A scene that doesn't just hint at Tony's fate, but flat out reveals it long before the infamous diner sequence. Today, we're breaking down the one moment that proves Tony Soprano was always going to die, a hidden clue David Chase buried in the middle of the series. And once you understand this scene, the ending is no longer ambiguous. It becomes inevitable. To understand this clue, we have to go back to season 6, during one of the most important conversations in the show. The moment Tony sits in the boat with Bobby Bacala, one of the few men Tony genuinely trusted. They're out on the lake, surrounded by calm water, separated from the noise and chaos of Tony's usual world. And Bobby tells him something that hits harder than any gunshot in the series.
You probably don't even hear it when it happens, right?
At first glance, it just sounds like two mobsters talking about death. But this line is the Rosetta Stone of the entire show. Bobby isn't just making small talk, he's describing Tony's final moment years before it happens. According to Bobby's logic, when a mob boss gets killed, there's no slow motion, no dramatic music, no last words. It's instant, silent, over before you even realize what happened. And that is exactly how the series ends. The screen cuts to black, abruptly, silently, with no music, no gunshot, and no closure. Just darkness. Exactly as Bobby described. The show tells you how Tony will die long before it shows you, or rather, doesn't show you. But the power of that line goes far beyond the obvious connection. Think about the setting. Tony is on a boat, a place where he feels comfortable, powerful, and in control. Water has always been symbolically tied to Tony's emotions, his subconscious, and his fears. The boat scenes are the only times Tony is fully honest, even vulnerable. So when Bobby speaks that line on the water, it sinks into Tony in a way no one else could reach him. And the truth is, Tony never forgot it. The line haunts him throughout the season, and Chase brings it back at the end of part 1 of season 6 in a heartbreaking way. Bobby dies exactly the way he described, killed without warning, without hearing a thing, in a toy store of all places. His death is silent, sudden, and brutally quick. Chase isn't trying to shock the audience. He's reminding you of Bobby's line and proving that the line wasn't hypothetical. It was a rule of the Mafia world, a rule of the Sopranos universe, and rules once established must be followed. Now let's look at the final scene with that rule in mind. Tony sits in Holston's diner, waiting for his family. He picks Journey on the jukebox, which is already ironic because the song is called Don't Stop Believin'. But what matters more than the music is the structure of the scene. The scene is edited in a rhythmic pattern. Door opens, Tony looks up. Door opens, Tony looks up again. The show gets you used to the sound of the bell. The bell becomes a countdown. It trains your brain into expecting a rhythm. Sound, reaction, sound, reaction, sound, and then nothing. No final reaction, no final shot of Tony, no music fading out. Just silence. This isn't an artistic flourish. It's the exact death Bobby described years earlier. You don't hear it when it happens. And Tony didn't. He didn't have time to look up. He didn't have time to react. Someone walked in, most likely the guy in the members-only jacket, and Tony was gone, instantaneously. But David Chase didn't just foreshadow Tony's death with Bobby's boat scene. There's another layer people rarely talk about. The context of their conversation is crucial. Tony and Bobby are discussing what happens when a man dies. They aren't speaking metaphorically. They're speaking about the Mafia, about consequences, about the life they chose. The scene is framed slowly, peacefully, almost eerily. Chase wants you to remember this moment. He wants the line to feel casual when you hear it the first time, but unforgettable when you return to it after finishing the show. This is classic storytelling structure. Chase gives you the answer early, hides it in plain sight, and waits for you to discover it later. The brilliance of this particular clue is that Chase repeats it. When Bobby dies the same way he described, it's a test run for the audience. If you understood Bobby's line, then you will understand Tony's ending. If you missed it, Chase isn't going to explain it for you. He expects viewers to piece the clues together just like the detectives and mobsters in the story. But let's dig even deeper. Bobby's line doesn't just predict the method of Tony's death, it predicts the theme. The Sopranos has always been a show about the banality of violence. People die doing normal things, buying groceries, pumping gas, eating dinner. Tony's final scene is intentionally mundane. It's not a mafia showdown, it's not a shootout, it's Tony having onion rings with his family. Chase wants you to understand that real mob deaths aren't cinematic. They're sudden and unglamorous. The cut to black is the most realistic depiction of death Tony could possibly receive. He doesn't get a grand finale, he gets nothing. Another crucial detail is the camera perspective. In the final seconds before the cut to black, the camera shifts to Tony's point of view, meaning the instant the screen goes black, we are seeing Tony's death through Tony's eyes. A total blackout, eternal nothingness. The audience doesn't hear anything because Tony doesn't hear anything. The audience doesn't see anything because Tony doesn't see anything. The show collapses into darkness because that's what death looks like from the inside. This is an artistic choice Chase had used before in the series, but never so dramatically. Some viewers argue that the ending is simply ambiguous and that Chase didn't want to give a clear answer, but that isn't entirely accurate. Chase has slipped up multiple times in interviews. In one famous moment, he said he never understood why people thought the ending was confusing because the clues are all there. In another interview, he accidentally referred to the ending as the death scene. He quickly tried to correct himself, but the damage was done. Chase has always been a writer who uses subtlety, misdirection, and symbolic framing. The boat scene with Bobby is one of the clearest examples. It is intentional foreshadowing, the kind most writers only dream of pulling off. Here's something even more surprising. Fans who rewatch the show often notice that Tony's final season is filled with death symbolism. He becomes obsessed with his own mortality. In the Kevin Finnerty dream arc, Tony nearly dies and experiences what appears to be the afterlife. The show spends multiple episodes exploring what death feels like from Tony's perspective. Chase isn't hiding the theme, he is surrounding Tony with it. Bobby's line isn't just a prediction, it is the thesis of the entire series. Death comes suddenly, unexpectedly, and without ceremony. Tony's whole life is about outrunning the inevitable. The final scene is the moment he finally loses. Even the members-only guy, the man many believe killed Tony, ties back thematically to the show's earlier episodes, specifically the members-only episode, which focused on betrayal and the consequences of mob politics. If you follow Chase's storytelling patterns, everything fits neatly. Tony's death is not a twist. It's the fulfillment of a promise Chase made to the audience years earlier on that quiet boat ride with Bobby. In the end, the reason this scene proves Tony's death isn't just because Bobby predicted it. It's because Chase confirmed it through repetition, symbolism, editing, character arcs, and thematic consistency. When you put all the pieces together, the boat scene isn't just a conversation, it's a prophecy. And like all prophecies in The Sopranos, it comes true in the most brutal, realistic way possible. Tony Soprano didn't just die. He died exactly the way his closest friend told him he would. Silent, instant, without ever hearing it happen.